I can't remember the first time I came to the Fancy Food Show, and it was sheer excitement for me, decades ago for sure. But the topic that I've chosen for my discussion relating to the future of food asks whether the fancy in fancy food or the specialty in specialty food is passé. It's an idea I've been thinking about for a couple of years. What it amounts to is the shrinking gap between what we call a gourmet or specialty food store decades ago that would be selling many of the kinds of products you see on the floor here, and the supermarket of today, and also, by extension, the enormous growth of online shopping, the world supermarket. It's been a real game changer. Hello, Amazon. There certainly remains a place for high-end curated stores, cheese stores in particular, and websites, places like Dean & DeLuca, Oakville Grocery, Zingerman's, and so forth. But the goods they purvey, though perhaps not at their prices, are not so different from what you find in today's supermarkets like Whole Foods, Wegmans, and similar chains. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be negative or cynical, but I could be. Consumer tastes and expectations have definitely changed, and that's a good thing. It's driving the mass market, both retail and in restaurants, to up their game, be more conscious of organics, for example, fair trade practices, greenness, and quality. And there are downsides to all of this. How did it all happen? And is it continuing to happen? Back in the early 1980s, when Giorgio De Luca began selling balsamic vinegar, it was a sit-up-and-take-notice event for the connoisseurs among us, those of us who maybe even knew what balsamic vinegar was. I remember buying a bottle of aged balsamico in Modena in 1983 and bringing it as a gift to a family we were visiting in Florence. The Florentines had no idea what it was. Now there's balsamico from top to toe in Italy. In the US, can you imagine how many fine strawberries have been ruined by a dose of cheap balsamic vinegar in the name of so-called authentic Italian custom? There's white balsamic vinegar, which was created for the American market specifically because Americans didn't want brown dressing on their salads. It's made with uncooked grape must as opposed to the cooked must that's traditionally used in balsamic vinegar. It's like the hostess who only serves white wine because red stains the tablecloth. Those were the days when finding good olive oil was a challenge and extra virgin was some kind of punchline. When icebergs still reigned, Dijon mustard, even Grey Poupon, was exotic, and no one connected the dots between nitrite and nitrate and bacon. Politics may generate nostalgia for white bread 1950s, but I don't think anyone wants to go back to the days when you couldn't have 6 kinds of salt in the pantry and no goat cheese whatsoever. Certainly not domestic. This year, one manufacturer is touting a new chorizo, a Spanish-Mexican sausage that's gone from gourmet, if you will, to commonplace, back where it started in its native lands. There is some kind of new sausage, and not just imports, seemingly every day of the week. In 1990, everyone noticed that there were more salsas in the show than ketchup. Today, there might be more gochujang than ketchup, as Korean continues to rise in popularity, as it has for nearly the past 10 years. There's now a special bulgogi seasoning on display. I've noted how Indian foods, condiments, snacks, sauces, and especially ready-to-serve items continue their presence, expecting that someday, soon, that cuisine will click the way Korean has. African might be poised on the horizon. It's making inroads in a small way. Fonio, a kind of African seed, might try to challenge quinoa. 10 or 15 years ago, no one even knew what quinoa was, and now it's in the supermarkets. This is what's happening. America's increasingly diverse population, native and immigrant, is pushing all of that along. Kosher certification is now commonplace, in demand. Halal? Maybe soon. In 2001, there were 2,200 exhibiting companies. This year, it's up to 2,600. Square footage at the show has increased from 292,000 square feet to 362,000. But what has struck me in the past couple of years is the incubator aisle that has been added, where small, new entrepreneurs can show their wares, often products that might be hitting the market for the first time after months or years of development, first in somebody's kitchen, then in some commissary, with perhaps a Kickstarter campaign thrown in. This year, 46 countries are exhibiting foods, some familiar, some not so much. But give them a little time, and you'll probably see Peruvian ají amarillo in the local Kroger's, where blue potato chips are now commonplace. The internet has definitely made food startups easier than ever to market without a formal distributor. So where is this all going, and what will we see coming? Based on this year's show, I'd say that health claims of one sort or another are skyrocketing. Look at waters infused with everything under the sun, the snack bars that supposedly double as superfoods or contain ingredients that are supposed to enhance wellness and improve everything from your muscles to your mind. There is on display, there is an appetite-suppressing cactus snack. The cactus is something that's eaten by African tribes when they go out on a hunt. They don't want to feel hungry, so they munch this cactus in some form or another, and that keeps them from feeling hungry. Prehistoric water from Lake Tanganyika. Its only claim is a refreshment and purity. It doesn't have additives, but it's 10 million years old. You can use that to start your paleo diet. Cannoli chips, nothing goes to waste. And the names of products have taken a turn. There is a coconut mousse called Mud, and then there's a granola called Crapola that's supposed to do you know what. Baked goods with the name Safely Delicious kind of sums it up, because the whole vegan, vegetarian, allergen-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, and sometimes flavor-free movement is very, very big. And people are willing to sacrifice a lot of characteristics that we normally associate with food in the name of perhaps caution, perhaps overcaution. When I think of food safety, I don't think of allergies so much. My children had none. My grandchildren have none. I think more of the practices used to manufacture foods and how I keep them at home. That's where food safety goes in my mind. At the same time, the health of the planet and of the hungry third world and even American populations in need also become increasingly tied to everyday foods. Organic is an argument not for just what you may ingest into your personal physiognomy, but also for how organic practices benefit land and water, and the cost for them is coming down. You know, they would originally complain that the automobile manufacturers didn't want to install seat belts and airbags because it would increase the cost of the automobile, and then they woke up to the fact that consumers wanted safety. And I think that the razor-thin grocery margins that are legendary and still exist will also learn how to sustain organics, and the cost for producing them is decreasing. I also think we'll see a more positive view toward GMOs. Not all GMOs, some still deserve the term frankenfoods, but the trade-off of being able to feed needy, starving populations, especially in parts of the world where climate change is creating heat and drought, will make GMO-based crops a necessity. And I don't say that lightly. I was an anti-GMO person for quite a while, but I've read enough arguments that indicate that not only are GMOs valuable, used in the right way, but they also can result in decreased use of pesticides and herbicides and those nasty things that can affect not only the food we eat. I would not ever think, if I can avoid it, of eating anything but an organic strawberry because strawberries are so heavily treated, for example. But at the same time, with the GMOs, there is this benefit. On the near horizon, I think we'll see increased and perhaps unnecessary variety. How many flavors of mochi do you need? You'd probably never had mochi unless you were from Hawaii, till about 10 years ago. And now I think there were 4 or 5 mochi purveyors in the show. In order for food companies to stay in the game and not seem stale, Big Food will continue to be attracted to the artisanal makers. Unilever will snap up small companies, and they may or may not dumb them down for the mass market. What will Kroger's do to Murray's Cheese? What's happening to the craft breweries that are bought up by InBev? And even though what you see on the show floor these days may, for the most part, have an increasingly hard time generating a wow, I can't remember the last time I got excited about a new mustard. I can remember when I first got excited about a new mustard. The show's purpose as a way to introduce new products, reinforce established ones that have its pulse on the trends, give it value beyond measure. How else would I know about avocado blossom honey or Bloody Mary flavored cashews or harissa cashew butter for adults? Bring them on. Possibilities when it comes to new flavors and new foods will continue to grow. So I go through this show and I look for what's new and interesting and unusual and not just a new flavor or a new package. And I also see an awful lot of stuff that has become a standard bearer in the show and exhibits over and over, and a lot of those products are things that I've already written about, and I'm proud of that. But I think that the show is a pace setter, and it does give people in the industry, and by extension the press and the readers of articles about these products, something to look forward to, something new on the plate. And listen, if you can't get excited about what you're eating, what's the point? Thank you very much.